I keep my coffee in a glass jar that used to hold pickled peppers. The lid squeaks when I twist it. Every morning, 6:40 a.m., kettle on. 2 slices of rye in the old black plus Decker toaster. A square of unsalted butter softening on the saucer I chipped in '98. The small rituals anchor me better than any sermon. At 68, a widower with knees that crack like ice. You learn to take your anchors where you can find them. The refrigerator gives its familiar throat clearing before the compressor settles. I run a finger across the Formica table. The one Nora chose in 1991. White specks like salt in gray laminate. Her handwriting still lives on the inside of the pantry door. Cumin, bay leaves, don't forget the limes. It's a quiet house, the kind of quiet that makes a kettle sound like an alarm. You want to know when it started. People like the first bad note, circled in red. January 12th, 2024, 10:17 a.m. The bank app pinged my phone while I was counting coins for the parking meter outside Dr. Lawson's office. ACH out, $75,000. Memo, bridge for Q1 marketing push. The from account was my savings, the one I keep at Granite Federal because their branch still smells faintly of paper and furniture polish. The recipient was a business account at Shoreline Digital LLC, my son Evan's company. When I called, he sounded breathless and busy. He's always breathless and busy on the phone. It's how he sets the stage. Dad, sorry, I'm just between calls. That transfer? Total non-issue. We're landing a big client. Kelsey talked to you, right? It's a bridge, 45 days. We'll wire back the full 75 plus 1%. Token interest. 45 days, I repeated. A bus coughed under a gray sky. And Kelsey talked to me about what? He laughed, that practiced, effortless upward ripple that used to diffuse my irritation when I was 12. She said she'd call. Anyway, we're family. Family only, right? I've got to jump. Love you. Call ended. I stared at the phone as if it might cough up a better answer. Family only. I put 4 quarters in the meter, and for the first time since Nora died, the street felt like a stage, and I like an extra who'd forgotten his line. That night, after a dinner that tasted like cardboard, overcooked brown rice and an egg fried on the cheap skillet I promised Nora I'd replace, I looked again. The transfer authorization carried my name and my approval. The signature was electronic. Finger swiped across glass. I don't sign anything with my finger. Kelsey did. She'd helped me set up biometric access in November. You see, kept the tone gentle, like instructing a child how to hold scissors. So you don't have to remember all those passwords, Dad. She had a smile as white and polished as Evan's new veneers. I almost convinced myself it was a misunderstanding. We'd sit, we'd talk, they'd apologize. 45 days. June would bring lilies back to the yard and the 75 back to Granite Federal. June came. The lilies, yes. The money, no. If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription. I keep a folder, battered manila, labeled electricity/etc. It's where I tuck the bills I can't face at night. June 3rd, I emptied it onto the Formica and made rows like a small private war. DMV, property tax, Spectrum Internet, and a scatter of bank statements with numbers that didn't care about my blood pressure. $4,980 to Triumph Fitness. Memo, Company Wellness. $2,950 to Peloton Interactive. $12,700 to Premium Travel Services. $31,600 by cashier's check to Shoreline Media Build-Out. $1,842 recurring to Cloud Suite Enterprise. They were nibbling when I wasn't looking, smiling over dinner while they tidied my wallet with a vacuum. When I called that afternoon, Kelsey switched to her softest voice. The travel thing? It was for investor meetings. Evan told you, Miami, then Austin. We put your card on file for the points. She laughed. You didn't even notice all the points we got you. You used my retirement account as your rewards program, I said. The butter knife in my hand made a small click against the plate. And the 75? Don't make this harder than it is, she said, and something colder bloomed beneath the sweetness. We're going to make you proud. Later that week, a paper arrived by courier while I was timing my spaghetti to 11 minutes, just the way Nora liked. Durable power of attorney draft. Pre-filled names. Little flags where my signature should go. An attached sticky. Simplifies the refi. Title company says this protects you. The title company's name was neat and expensive. Harbor and Line. I stared at the line where my signature should live. The pasta boiled over, starchy foam hissing like a reprimand. I turned off the stove, sat, and didn't eat. For the first time, the house didn't feel like a house. It felt like a wallet with windows. Don't misunderstand me. I love my son. I still do, from some stubborn corner that refuses to die. When he called me at 9 years old, sobbing because he'd dropped his trumpet in the school parking lot, I left the plant in the middle of a shift. When Nora's chemo took her hair and her appetite and our boy begged me in the kitchen, "Dad, don't let her die," I lay on the coal tile and made promises I had no power to keep. I'd have cut out my heart to keep my family whole. So when Evan looked me in the eye at Jungle Thai on 3rd, July 19th, 7:26 p.m., I checked the receipt later and said, "We're keeping you safe, Dad." It took longer than it should have for the anger to arrive. Safe from what? His eyes slid to Kelsey. From stress. We'll take the house, paperwork, taxes, mortgage decisions. You focus on you. He waved vaguely at my chest and my age. "I don't have a mortgage," I said. "Exactly. That's the problem. You're tying up capital that could be earning. Kels has a friend at Harbor and Line. They can line up a cash-out refi at 5.9 easy. Installment for 20, but it's tax strategic." He squeezed my shoulder. "You don't need all that space. We'll make the money work." "Make the money work," I repeated. "We're family," Kelsey said, stirring her pad thai like she was mixing a potion. Family doesn't nickel and dime family. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with a pot of tea strong enough to stand a spoon, a yellow legal pad, and the quiet hum of the fridge for company. I wrote dates. I wrote amounts. I wrote the words, "He is my son," and underlined them until the page tore. In the morning, I called the pro bono clinic at the Law Center on Maple. The intake woman, Angela, had a voice like a blanket. "Bring everything. Don't sign anything in the meantime." By Friday, I had a new folder. Evidence. Angela had printed the account authorizations and circled IP addresses. Granite federal sent logs. We could see the evening Kelsey helped me set up the biometric. The swipe wasn't my pattern. The IP wasn't my house. Saturday, I took a walk to muddy my shoes on purpose. Wet leaves, wet cuffs. Ollie, the neighbor's golden, pushed his nose into my hand and left it damp. I told him everything. 45 days, I said to a dog who didn't care. He stared at me like I hung the moon. Nora used to call that look unconditional. People don't do unconditional. Not really. On Sunday, because every story like this needs a Sunday phone call. Evan asked me to meet them at a cafe that sells $6 cookies to people who praise their edges on Yelp. He was in a navy suit that said I'm about to accept an award for being visionary. She wore a white blazer. No crumbs on their lives. Kelsey opened a leather folder like a magician. "Dad, great news. We got shortlisted for the City Innovators Award. Gala is September 14th at the Harbor Center. Press. Donors. It'll be huge for Shoreline. We want you on stage." She smiled. "Family only." I looked at the stapled papers beneath the invitation. Harbor and Line title, preliminary. Refi packet. Estimated cash to borrower, $428,000. Borrower, Evan Carter, Kelsey Harris. Property address, mine. The justification line read, "Interfamily transfer for estate efficiency." The coffee had too much cinnamon. Or maybe my mouth suddenly forgot how to taste. You think revenge is made of operatic gestures and storm door showdowns. Mostly it's forms and waiting on hold. Monday morning, 8:42, I sat with a landline pressed to my ear while Granite Federal played a piano loop and told me my call mattered to them. When a human voice arrived, I asked for a fraud hold on my online banking and the immediate disabling of biometrics. "Yes, sir. Password reset. Will courier materials." 9:17, I called Harbor and Line. "This is Richard Carter. Any closing scheduled on 17 Maple?" A young man tried to sound authoritative. "We have a file, sir, but it isn't public." "It is now," I said. "You'll be getting a lease pendens recorded against that property within the hour. No instrument should be recorded that encumbers title until the cloud is cleared." "I'll inform counsel." 10:03. Angela from the clinic stood next to me before the clerk's window at the county recorder. Sliding over stamped paperwork, like a magician laying down a winning card. Lease pendants. Elder financial abuse complaint. We were careful with the words. Temporary restraining order application drafted. To be filed ex parte if they pushed. At noon, while I ate leftover stew straight from a saucepan because I hate washing 2 dishes for one old man, I called my old plant supervisor, Mike. 30 years ago, we kept the city running on alternating current and black coffee. He still knew a man who knew a man, a process server. Galley say? Mike chuckled. He'll never forget it. In the evening, I microwaved a baked potato until the skin crackled and sprinkled it with too much salt. The living room looked the same as always. Nora's chair with a throw she liked to fuss about. The small clock that gains 4 minutes a month. Some part of me wanted to curl into the old life where my son called for advice about oil changes and term papers. But every time I softened, my phone lit up with a new charge. Premium travel services. $3,440. Memo FLOSFO house family only. September 14th dawned the color of dishwater, and the harbor center put on its best face anyway. Brass railing polished to optimism. Lobby piano played by a graduate student who couldn't afford rent. Canapes arranged like punctuation on white plates. Air that smelled like money wearing aftershave. I wore the gray suit from Nora's funeral and a tie she bought me for our 30th. Navy with small B's. I thought she'd appreciate the gallows humor. My knees hurt. I checked my watch 3 times, although I already knew when it would happen. A junior official with a waxed mustache said Evan's name as if presenting a minor prince. Applause. Lights. A slide showing a graph that only went up. Kelsey kissed his cheek in that calculated way she uses when cameras watch. They walked to the microphone together, their smiles mirroring. He started with the origin story. They always start with the origin story. Garage, vision, grind. He pointed at me when the script told him. My father taught me everything about work. This is for him. The crowd nodded approval as if they'd heard something profound. And then the doors at the back opened. Not loud, not dramatic. 2 people in suits, and a third whose job was to carry an envelope and say a name into a room on a good sound system. Evan Carter? The voice was firm, not unkind. The envelope changed hands. You can feel 100 heads turn as one. It sounds like cloth shifting. Kelsey tried to take it. The server didn't let go. Mr. Carter only. Evan's smile cracked in the middle. He looked at me the way a boy looks at a father when he stepped through ice. I didn't move. The bees on my tie glowed their tiny warning yellow. He opened it. People expect summonses to shout. They don't. They sit politely on letterhead and let your imagination do the screaming. Petition for injunctive relief. Complaint conversion, fraud, financial exploitation of an elder. Exhibit A through H motion for temporary restraining order on any encumbrance or transferee. 17 Maple. A camera flash popped where no camera should have been. The room stirred, a sound like a hive. Mr. Carter. One of the suits said on a breath made of coffee and mint. You've been served. Kelsey tried to laugh. A bright, brittle thing. This is a misunderstanding. We have counsel. That will help, the suit said pleasantly. The TRO hearing is on the docket for 8:30 a.m. tomorrow. Evans stared at the page as if language had betrayed him. He looked up at me, at my thrift store tie, and the grooves life carved around my mouth. His lips formed the word Dad, but no sound came out. In the back row, Mike, dear retired Mike, raised a thermos cup at me like a sailor saluting from a dark deck. You'll ask, did I enjoy it? A little. Unfortunately, justice is never pure. It always tastes faintly of ashes. You don't beat greed with a bigger speech. You beat it with audited paper and timestamps. In court the next morning, the fluorescent lights flattened everyone into the same pale shade. The judge had a pencil he liked to tap. When lawyers got metaphorical, Angela's voice was steady as a metronome. Your Honor, we have IP logs of unauthorized access to Mr. Carter's financial institutions. We have a proposed refinance packet initiated without his consent. We have a pattern of transfers totaling $128,400 since January from Mr. Carter's accounts to entities controlled by respondents. And we have sworn statements that respondents have sought to encumber petitioners' unmortgaged primary residence for their business use. She slid each piece of paper toward the clerk like a card player who knew the deck's moods. We request the temporary restraining order. We request Elise Pendens be noticed to the title company. And we ask for forensic accounting. Their lawyer wore a blue suit that said his office smells like leather and confidence. This is a family matter, Your Honor. Informal arrangements. My clients have provided support and intend to repay. The judge sighed through his nose, one long, tired exhale. Counsel, my docket says family 8 times before breakfast. And somehow the money is always informal, when it travels in one direction. The TRO is granted. Title is frozen pending further order. We'll see you in 30. I didn't look back at Evan. If I had, I might have remembered him in a helmet too large for his head, chasing a soccer ball that was mostly air and hope. Back home, the house smelled like toast and legal envelopes. I sat at the Formica and pulled the butter from the fridge. The jar lid squeaked, anchoring me. In the days that followed, stones unstacked themselves from the burden on my chest. Premium Travel Services reversed a charge. Granite Federal restored $18,700 after their fraud unit traced a pattern. A forensic accountant put together a neat spiral-bound report with tabs. Triumphs, Pelton, misspelled on their purchase order. I enjoyed that. Harbor and Line. Harbor and Line's counsel called Angela with a voice that had lost its polish. We, would like to be removed from any claim. The file is indefinitely on hold. And the city's Elder Protection Unit opened a case, which meant 2 social workers came to my kitchen, admired the bees on my tie. I had grown fond of it, and asked careful questions. I told them the truth. My son is not a cartoon villain. He is a man who learned that the line between help and harvest is blurry if the field is his father. A week later, Evan called. People imagine these calls as storms. They aren't. If you've ever heard autumn leaves fall on dry grass, you know the sound of a man trying to make his voice young again. Dad, can we talk? We are talking. He tried again. We were going to pay it back. I know what you're going to do, I said. Your plans are written in my bank statements. Silence stretched and finally broke. We're family. I am family, I said. I am not your line of credit. He started to cry in the faraway way grown men cry, with their teeth clenched. What do you want from me, Dad? I looked at Nora's list on the pantry door and chose my words the way she used to choose spices. I want you to be someone I can trust with a set of house keys, not my title. You'll never see a movie about a settlement conference. Beige room, beige coffee, a mediator who used to be a judge and now collects cufflinks and stories. In that beige room, Evan and Kelsey agreed to what paper calls making whole. The number has weight and breadth. $178,640 wired back to Granite Federal. $12,000 for fees. A letter to Harbor and Line withdrawing any authorization. And a promise notarized in dull to seek no further interest in 17 Maple. I didn't ask for an apology. Not because I'm saintly, but because I am practical. Apologies wash off in the first rain of need. Paper is what keeps the roof dry. When the wire confirmation hit my inbox on a Thursday at 2:14 p.m., I was at the sink rinsing romaine. The droplets knocked out a little drumbeat on the stainless steel. I made a salad the way Nora taught me. Olive oil first, then salt, then lemon. Don't drown the leaves, let them breathe. And I ate it with a slice of rye and a square of butter that didn't quite reach the corners. I washed the plates slowly. In a quiet house, you make music with small sounds. That night, I tuned my old radio. The baseball crackled discouragingly, but the voices still sounded like summer. I sat in Nora's chair and watched the clock gain its 4 foolish minutes. The house felt like a house again, with windows and not withdrawal slips. Evan hasn't called since the mediator's office. Kelsey sent 2 texts. We were only trying to build a future, and you humiliated us. I tapped back the only sentence that felt honest. You did that yourselves. Sometimes late, I imagine a different evening. One where Evan walked in with 2 bags of groceries and said, Dad, we need help, but we won't take it by picking your pocket. In that version, we sit at the Formica, and I teach him the arithmetic that kept the lights on for 40 years. We plan, we argue, we forgive. In that version, Nora laughs from the kitchen, and we all obey the pantry list. It's a pretty story. I let it visit, then I let it go. The next morning, I replaced the skillet I promised Nora I'd replace. Cast iron, heavy as honesty. I made eggs that didn't stick and brewed coffee that tasted like the kind I'd buy when I'd finished one more overtime shift. The lid squeaked, and I laughed. Justice isn't always a trumpet. Sometimes it's a toast crust crackling under a knife. Sometimes it's the absence of a debt at 2:14 in your inbox. Sometimes it's a house that belongs to no one but you and the woman whose list still keeps your pantry honest. They wanted a silent wallet. I brought a microphone. And in the end, this is the part that matters. I kept the house, the kettle, and my name. That will do.